Most men truly do not understand the complexity of the female universe. Even though we live in an age where information is everywhere, the majority of them continue to ignore subtle signals, psychological nuances, and behavioral patterns that reveal what women feel, think, and desire. And it is precisely in these details that the key lies to better understanding not only the female mind, but also how relationships are built, strengthened, and often lost. Female psychology is a vast territory filled with layers and nuances. Yet the truth is that most men walk through it as if in a garden at night, stumbling, guessing the path, but rarely seeing what is right in front of their eyes. Understanding these details is not just a matter of romance or attraction. It goes far beyond that. It is about human connection, empathy, and learning to relate to one another in a more conscious and healthy way. When we talk about female psychology, we are speaking of emotional patterns, of how the environment influences reactions, and of how memories and experiences shape expectations, desires, and fears. The problem is that many men still believe women are an unsolvable mystery, something impossible to truly understand. That belief is not only false but also damaging, because it limits the way relationships grow. Psychology has shown time and again that clear patterns exist, and although each woman is unique, many behaviors follow similar lines. One of the first points most men ignore is the fact that female communication extends far beyond words. While many men focus only on what is said, women convey intentions, discomforts, and even desires through gestures, expressions, and silences. Psychology calls this nonverbal communication, and studies reveal that it carries far more weight than spoken words. When a woman crosses her arms, avoids eye contact, leans slightly away, or sighs during a situation, she is communicating something that may contradict what she just said. The man who fails to see this lives in constant confusion, never understanding why his partner seems always unsatisfied or always sending mixed signals. The ignored detail is right there. The message is not only in what is spoken, but also in what is felt and shown. Another often overlooked aspect is the way women process emotions. Female psychology reveals that women, in general, give greater importance to emotional experience than to immediate practical outcomes. While many men prefer to solve problems quickly and objectively, most women first need to be heard, validated in their feelings, and understood in their joy or their pain. It is not about fixing it, but about sharing. When a woman talks about something that bothers her, she often does not expect an instant solution, but rather presence, listening, and empathy. This detail, ignored by so many, is the root of countless relationship conflicts. The man who understands this not only strengthens his bond, but also creates a foundation of trust that is difficult to break. Emotional memory is another powerful factor. Psychology shows that women tend to register events not just by what happened, but by how they felt in that moment. This means it is not the expensive dinner that stays in her memory, but whether she felt valued, special, and loved during that dinner. It is not the gift itself that matters, but the intention, thoughtfulness, and care behind it. Many men ignore this and believe material gestures are enough. But the truth is, if the emotional experience is poor, the event becomes irrelevant in a woman's memory. On the other hand, small gestures, a kind word at the right time, a look of complicity or genuine listening, can be remembered for years. That detail makes all the difference. Another fascinating point is how attraction works differently. For most men, physical appearance is the first and often the most decisive factor at the beginning of a connection. But for women, although appearance matters, the real differentiator is how a man makes them feel. Details like emotional safety, humor, authenticity, and clarity of purpose carry more weight than muscles, height, or looks. This is why so many men labeled ordinary by society manage to attract women considered out of their league. The overlooked detail is that the female mind connects not only to what it sees, but to what it feels. When a man focuses on creating positive emotional experiences, he becomes unforgettable, regardless of physical appearance. Psychology also shows that women tend to be more sensitive to their social environment. They notice subtle shifts, interpret body language, and read context with remarkable acuity. Many men ignore this, and therefore do not understand why their partners catch things they themselves miss. A change in tone, a delayed reply to a message, a different look, all of these are registered and analyzed. Ignoring this often leads to the mistaken idea that women overcomplicate everything. In truth, it is simply a more detailed, deeper way of processing information. Another commonly ignored detail is how women balance reason and emotion. While the stereotype suggests they are too emotional, the truth is that women possess an extraordinary ability to integrate both logic and feeling in their decisions. This means their choices are rarely cold and purely rational, but neither are they purely emotional. They seek coherence between what they feel and what they think. That balance explains why women may take longer to decide, but also why, once they do, their choices tend to be firmer and more consistent. Men who ignore this often get frustrated with the delay, without realizing that this careful process reflects internal validation. Self-esteem also plays a central role. Psychology demonstrates that female self-esteem is deeply influenced not only by self-image, but also by perceived value within relationships. While many men build self-esteem from external achievements, career, wealth, or status, women often build theirs from the quality of their connections. This is not dependence, but rather a different way of relating to the world. A sincere compliment, genuine recognition, or the simple act of being truly heard can have far more impact than an expensive gift or grand gesture. Men who overlook this detail think their partners need too much attention, when in fact what they need is connection and validation. Desire and intimacy also highlight overlooked truths. Contrary to what many men think, for most women intimacy is not just physical, but also emotional. Desire is awakened when there is trust, respect, and emotional connection. Many men assume female attraction works like male attraction, immediate, visual, straightforward. But psychology shows female desire is far more contextual. Small gestures throughout the day, kind words, respect, or thoughtfulness directly influence intimacy later. The overlooked detail is that intimacy begins long before the bedroom. It begins in the conversations, the looks, the daily care. The way women handle conflict further illustrates their psychology. While many men avoid discussions, believing silence preserves peace, women often lean into dialogue, even if it is uncomfortable. They know that silence can erode a relationship slowly, so they push to clarify and express feelings. Men who ignore this see arguments as threats, when in fact they are often attempts to save the bond. Psychology shows that couples who argue and resolve through dialogue are more likely to last than those who avoid confrontation altogether. The overlooked detail is that silence rarely means peace. Often it signals distance. Intuition is another area where women stand out. Research shows women are often more intuitively perceptive, largely because they record and process more emotional and social cues. This intuition is not mystical, but psychological. A refined perception connecting past experiences, subtle signs, and feelings. Many men ignore or mock this intuition, not realizing it is a powerful tool for reading situations. When a woman says, "Something feels wrong," it is often not imagination, but a heightened perception. The detail is that invalidating her intuition erodes trust and creates unnecessary walls. Vulnerability is equally misunderstood. Many women may appear strong and independent, and indeed they are, yet psychology shows they all carry fears, insecurities, and fragile spots. The detail men often ignore is that vulnerability is not weakness, but part of being human. When a woman shares her vulnerability, she is offering trust, an invitation to intimacy. Unfortunately, many men dismiss or minimize what she shares, instead of simply holding space for it. The result is emotional withdrawal and disconnection. The man who understands this realizes that listening to vulnerability is not weakness, but strength. Life stages also shape female psychology. What matters at 20 will not be the same at 30, 40, or 50. Emotional stability, financial security, maturity, and life purpose gain weight over time. Men who ignore this continue to use the same strategies they did in the past, unaware that the context has shifted. The detail here is adaptation, realizing that as men change, so do women. And keeping pace with those changes is essential to sustaining healthy connections. Finally, perhaps the most ignored detail of all, respect. It may sound obvious, but psychology shows respect is one of the most decisive factors in lasting relationships. It is not only about avoiding insults, but about recognizing individuality, dreams, boundaries, and value. Many men, without realizing, fall into subtle disrespect, interrupting, dismissing opinions, neglecting feelings, or imposing decisions. These small actions, accumulated over time, corrode bonds more than any heated argument. The truth is that respect is not declared. It is demonstrated daily. Ignoring all these details is like walking in the dark, but paying attention to them opens the door to deeper, more conscious, and more authentic relationships. Female psychology is not an unsolvable riddle, but an invitation to observe, listen, and empathize. When men stop ignoring these details and begin noticing them, they discover a world of possibilities that goes far beyond the surface. And there lies true strength. Not in mastering tricks, not in memorizing lines, but in cultivating sensitivity, respect, and authenticity. Because in the end, 99% of men may ignore these details, but the 1% who learn to see them transform the way they live their relationships forever.